Alone in the Dark is perhaps the biggest game this year from THQ. I do enjoy survival horror games like Resident Evil, so I was looking forward to this one. This game is somewhat similar to Resident Evil, but it's a lot different. On the horror front, I personally didn't find the game too scary. It's mysterious, but not scary like Resident Evil scary. The game does have a third-person shooter element to it like Resident Evil, but that's not the biggest part of the game. Alone in the Dark is more about the storyline, the puzzles, the mysteries. It's more of a detective game. At the beginning of the game, you get to choose between two playable characters, Emily or Edward. At the start of the game, both characters go through the same story, but eventually their paths do diverge and each one gets their own different areas exclusive to that character. So if you really enjoy this, you can do 2 playthroughs at least. The game's all about detective work. Listen to every conversation, read every note or clue you see, and then use that to solve every puzzle and mystery in the game. There's a lot of secrets. If you don't rush through the game, you'll get about 12 to 15 hours of playtime. Now on the other hand, if you set the difficulty to easy and let the game guide you through the puzzles, well, it might be about half that. For me, I really enjoyed this game. It's not a masterpiece like Resident Evil 4 or Resident Evil Village, but it's worth checking out. So how does it run on Xbox Series S versus Series X versus PS5? I'm going to show you all of that, including a secret graphic mode that unlocks the frame rate. The game's about 30 gigabytes on all 3 consoles, so it's sort of small by today's standards. I did wait for the day 1 patch to go out before recording all my final footage here, because before that patch the game actually had a lot of screen tearing and graphic bugs. The loading times in Alone in the Dark are one of the fastest I've seen. Continuing your game from dashboard takes only 14 seconds on PS5. Xbox is a bit slower, 17 seconds on the Series S and 19 on the Series X. PS5 also has activity cards to load up even faster. But Xbox, well, that has quick resume, which is a more powerful feature and gets you back in the game almost instantly. In terms of the graphics, the visuals, there are 2 graphic modes, quality and performance. Quality mode is 30 FPS, performance mode is 60 FPS. The graphic mode selection is bugged and doesn't seem to do what it should. For one, if you change the graphic mode on the fly, it doesn't really seem to take effect. You do have to restart the game for that mode to properly change. And then in terms of the resolution, the graphics, it seems like there's really no change happening. Selecting quality mode doesn't seem to improve resolution or the graphics. I mean, here you saw on the screen a side-by-side comparison between quality mode and performance mode on all 3 consoles, and both modes really look the same on all the consoles. Now the good news is that in performance mode, the FPS does get bumped up to 60 FPS on all 3 consoles. Xbox Series S has a lot less details in the lighting, the shadows. The Series S is also quite blurry compared to the Series X and PS5. We're talking resolution of around 900p at best. The more powerful Series X and PS5 look decent at around 1440p on average, but as I said before, the modes seem to be broken because quality mode, which should get 4K 30 FPS, looks the same as performance mode. Now let's look at the frame rate, the FPS. Quality mode is 30 FPS, and for the most part, it actually stays close to 30 on all 3 consoles. There is some minor stuttering on all the consoles where you get fluctuations between 29 and 30 FPS. There's also some freezing and lag spikes, and I noted this freezing happens at exactly the same time on all 3 consoles. Xbox is perhaps just a tiny bit more stable compared to PlayStation, but honestly there isn't much of a difference. All 3 consoles get the same drops in the exact same areas of the game. Performance mode is 60 FPS on all 3 consoles, including the Series S. Here the frame rate is also decent. It's not a mess like that other THQ game that came out last week, Outcast 2. All 3 consoles stay close to 60 and even lock for small intervals. But as you can see, there are drops on all 3, even though they're minor. Luckily, there's no screen tearing after the day 1 patch. I did see a ton of screen tearing when I got the review code about a week early. Who knows, the graphics and performance issues that remain should also be addressed in further patches, but by the time it's fixed, maybe everyone will be past this game. It is, after all, a single player game that has no replayability once you actually beat it once or twice. Now that secret graphic modes I was talking about, like I said, when you change the mode on fly, it doesn't seem to take effect. But on the Series X and PS5, if you, let's say you're in performance mode and then you switch to quality mode on the fly, it does something odd. You can see this FPS analysis on the Series X. Here, I essentially switched from performance to quality on the fly and it unlocked the frame rate. So this is probably giving you a locked resolution on the higher end and then trying to give you kind of the best fluctuating frame rate, which seems to be around 40 FPS. Now, if at this point I restart the game and come back in and just leave the settings the same, it actually goes to 30 FPS locked as it's meant to be for quality mode. Now, in terms of the gameplay, I've put about 10 to 15 hours into it, and while it's not a masterpiece, it's a decent game. I would give Alone in the Dark an 8 out of 10. It's really one of the best modern detective type games out there. So that's what you need to know about Alone in the Dark on Xbox Series S versus Series X versus PS5. For the rest of the video, I have some more side-by-side gameplay with that FPS counter shown.
Got it. Yeah, come on, Carby. Wouldn't you rather fall? Do you know where she is?
I'd rather not talk about it. It makes me upset. Besides, she'll be back after the Feast of St. John.
You think?
Yup. It's all on the page, Mr. Conby.
Thank God that's over.